have similar emotional circuits to people. When they hear their owners' voices, for example, you can see some brain centers that relate to joy and happiness and caring lighting up. You could see that they enjoy being with people.
Remy is the first dog being trained in Canada to help older adults who've experienced abuse and neglect. Part of what he does is provide compression support for people with anxiety. He's also being trained to go through the courthouse with people who may have limited vision.
These are my favorite snakes. You can sit and watch TV and all they do is sit there with you and snuggle. We're nice and warm. They love to sit on our laps. So if you want a low maintenance pet, here it is. It poops once a week, very, very clean.
It poops once a week?
You got it.
From where?
From the Zoomerplex in historic Liberty Village, the Zoomer with Marissa Semkiw.
Welcome to the Zoomer. I'm Marissa Semkiw. Whether you are a dog or cat person, a reptile or rodent lover, one thing is for certain: we love our pets. For many of us, they are our closest companions, favorite listeners, even members of the family. And while many of us intuitively understand the benefits of pet ownership, an emerging body of research has also found this relationship is good for our physical and mental health. Today's show tries to explore these benefits and also to answer just what it is about pets that has the power to impact us in such a positive way. We've also gathered a menagerie of animals that you may just want to bring home. But before we dive in, let's debate the topic.
Canadians love their pets to the tune of $8 billion annually. From pet food to vet visits to spas and daycares, the adoration of our animals is big business. 57% of Canadian households own pets. The most popular? Cats and dogs. 37% of Canadian households have a cat, while 32% have a dog. 9% of Canadians own other types of pets, like fish, birds, rabbits, and even reptiles like lizards and snakes. But no matter the animal, all evidence points in the same direction. Pets can help you live longer.
Sagi, I want to start with you. We're talking about the importance of the animal-human relationship and that bond that exists. Why is that so important?
Well, there are numerous studies that show that keeping a pet is supporting the welfare of the person who keeps the pet. They provide us purpose, they provide us joy, they provide responsibilities, and for many people, they also provide a reason to keep going. There is someone that you take care of. What
are some of the benefits? Alex, I'll ask you, when we talk about animals help to reduce stress, for example, what are some of the things that you see in the relationship between humans and their pets?
Yeah, so what we do is we place service dogs or guide dogs with people, and those dogs are performing tasks for those individuals, but almost to a man, every one of our active clients reports some level of a reduction of anxiety. Just as you had said, the more responsibility and the need to go on. I have to get out and walk my dog, and I was kind of withdrawing from society prior. So there's a lot of really positive things for all of our clients, even though that's not the specific reason we're placing those
Why
dogs.
do you think that is?
Well, I think dogs are very consistent. They're very good at having a relationship. They're a pack animal, so they want a relationship with their handlers. So it's a very easy relationship, I think, for humans to have.
Matt, you have a unique relationship with, you own 2 dogs. Yes. Yours is one of a partnership, if you will. Correct. How does that relationship differ from just your average pet owner?
The average pet owner gets up in the morning, gets ready for work, leaves the house, comes back 8-9 hours later to their dog who's been at home by themselves or with the rest of the family, where my dogs, when I leave for work, my dogs get into the back of my truck, they come to work with me, they're with me at work for 10 hours, and when I finish work, they come home with me. My days off, they're with me. If I'm going anywhere for an extended amount of time, 4 or 5 hours to my parents' house, to a friend's house, the dogs come with me. So that bond of partnership as opposed to pet ownership is greater because those dogs are with me more than my family is really, right?
What do we know about what animals receive from our love?
Well, there is a growing body of evidence coming recently with advanced imaging, such as functional MRIs that they can do on animals, to see actually different brain centers and circuits that prove that they have similar emotional circuits to people. It's hard to measure that subjectively because we can't speak to them. But when you measure those centers and when you see it on an MRI, for example, or even watching their behavior that is consistent along different contexts, you could see that they enjoy being with people. You could see some of their behaviors, you could see some of their brain centers when they hear their owner's voices, for example, or when they smell a scent of a familiar person. You can see some brain centers that relate to joy, for example, and happiness and caring. You can see them lighting up. So you know that they enjoy the interaction because we interpret that from people. If it interprets in people that we enjoy that simulation, and the same circuit in a dog, for example, lights up, you say, okay, the dog is probably enjoy the same as the person would enjoy.
That's neat. And it's not just cats and dogs, reptiles too.
Yep, you got it. So we have an interesting relationship with the animals that we work with, where we have two functions to them. Animal ambassadors to help teach the community and the public all about responsible pet ownership, as well as empathy and mindfulness. But we also have an adoption program at Reptilia where we try to pair animals that no longer have homes with people who can take them in.
All right, well, we need to take a short break, but first meet Gracie, an adorable, fun-loving Labradoodle. We invited her to roam the Zoomerplex and strapped a camera on her collar to follow her journey and see how she interacts with each of our colleagues. Watch this.
Oh, my darling. Oh my gosh, we're on candid camera. Oh my gosh, who are you and why are you so soft looking?
Hey! Hi! Hi! Oh my god, you're so cute, aren't you? Yeah.
How's it going, girl? Yeah, I'll have a quick rub.
Oh, look how smart you are. Look how big your face is.
Hi! I'm eating lunch. You want some? Hi!
Veterinary care is less accessible and more expensive the further away from urban areas you get. So there are some communities out in Northern Ontario that just simply do not have access to veterinary care at all.
Welcome back. Earlier, we spoke with author and primatologist Frans de Waal, who says in many ways, most animals have emotions as complex as humans. Take a look.
The domesticated animals are very similar. They're not fundamentally different from other animals. I would say the same is also true for farm animals. People sometimes think that we can exclude them from the story, but we cannot. All the mammals have these basic emotions that they share with us. I don't think we humans have unique emotions that are different from other species. And certainly the animals who are domesticated, especially the dog is domesticated to be attached to us and to be loyal to us. And there's a very strong bond between us and the dog and vice versa. And so they are very affected. The whole oxytocin system, you may have heard of that, is that certain hormones are involved in bonding, operates between the dog and us, on both sides, both in the dog and in us.
We should probably introduce the pets that we've now brought on into the panel. This cat is a male cat, and he was abandoned.
He was dropped off right at our front desk. So we operate by appointment only if you're going to be surrendering an animal into our care, just to make sure that we have the resources available to look after that animal appropriately. Johnny's owner did have an appointment scheduled, but he arrived early and wouldn't fill out any of the information about Johnny, just kind of put him on the desk and ran out of the building. So we've since discovered that Johnny is diabetic, so he is being monitored and he's getting insulin twice a day at this point in time, and he is actually responding really, really well, which is awesome. And he's a lovely, amazing boy.
Is his demeanor consistent with now what you know sort of about his background, that he was abandoned? And
Well, that's certainly a trauma. And like people, we know that animals can experience post-traumatic stress syndrome. So you can argue that being abandoned is a reason for it. But usually when owners abandon a pet, they have a reason behind it. And for the most parts, the reason is behavioral. So you have to wonder what he went through in his previous house that brought it to the level of abandoning them.
So I think it was probably the diabetes. It's a little bit hard for some people to manage, especially because you do have to give the insulin at certain specific periods of time during the day. So for Johnny, if he's looking for a new owner, it's going to be someone who is close to home a lot of the time. So if you're out and you're working and you've got 12, 14-hour days, having a diabetic cat is not necessarily going to work for you or for the cat.
Now, when we talk about animals that provide comfort to Zoomers, for example, many of them who perhaps have lost a loved one, who live alone, a cat is sort of an obvious one because they're soft, they're cuddly. How about guinea pigs?
I mean, well, it's personal preference, right? Certainly guinea pigs are a little bit smaller than cats. And so there may be some condo associations who may not allow you to have an animal like a dog or a cat, whereas a smaller animal like a rodent or guinea pig would be allowed into the home. And as you can see, I mean, what are the benefits? These guys are hilarious.
Now, if we were to bring up you've brought a third pet. If we were to bring him up, would it upset Johnny?
It may upset Johnny a little bit. We might want to say goodbye. Johnny's got a little spot to hang out with here, so we might want to give Johnny his little spot back.
Now, who's this guy?
This is Raccoon. Who looks kind of like a raccoon, I would say. So he was transferred in from another rescue. And sometimes what happens is that these rescues or organizations that are not kind of within the Toronto area, they don't have as much interest in adoptions out there. Their population just doesn't. They just don't support the number of animals that they have. And one of the reasons for that as well is because veterinary care is less accessible and more expensive the further away from urban areas you get. So there are some communities out in Northern Ontario that just simply do not have access to veterinary care at all. Yeah. So we at the Toronto Humane Society certainly go up to a number of different communities every year, and we do spay-neuters for free, and we provide annual health checks for those animals.
All right, well, when we come back, could man's new best friend be a reptile? Why they shouldn't be overlooked. But first, one owner goes above and beyond for their furry companion. Watch this.
So as a CARP member, Toronto resident Aaron Smith knew he had access to a number of benefits to take advantage of, not just for himself, but for the entire family. So when their faithful family dog Chico here started having trouble getting around the house, well, they decided to install something special just for him. Right, Chico? Have you ever heard of a dog stair lift installed anywhere before?
Not specifically.
So this could be the first of its kind.
I would say it probably is.
Chico is developing the early signs of arthritis. He's very active now because the house is full of people, but he has a fairly severe limp, and we wanted to get ahead of the problem before it got exacerbated by having to climb the stairs. I phoned 3 or 4 companies, and each and every single one they didn't call back. They must have thought I was crazy. And then I got in touch with Jim.
The fact that most of our office have dogs, our dog owners, we didn't think it was that crazy, so we decided there's no reason why a member of the family such as Chico can't enjoy the same sort of benefit from Stana stair lifts as anyone else.
So remember, aside from advocating for Canadians as we age, your CARP membership comes with some great benefits too, not just for me and you, but for Chico too. Here in Toronto, I'm Darren Maharaj for Zoomer News.
Every single animal we have at Reptilia, whether it's a snake, a lizard, an alligator, crocodile, or a turtle, they know the zookeepers. I might have a certain gecko pop their little head up and look over and say, hey, we're going out today. What are we doing? Are you feeding me?
Welcome back to the Zoomer. With the help of a GoPro camera, we've been tracking Gracie the dog's journey around the Zoomerplex. Let's see how she's doing.
Hello, Gracie. So beautiful.
Hello.
We're having a visit right now.
She's adorable. Hi. Hi, my sweetheart. How are you?
Oh my God!
You are so beautiful.
Hi, honey buddy.
While not always a first choice pet for many people, reptilia are for the most part low maintenance and a quiet alternative to fish. Sam Medina and Aidan Williamsdale from Reptilia Inc. join me now with some of the best reptiles to keep as pets, and we're starting with the gecko.
The leopard gecko, you got it. These are one of the most common pet lizards. They're absolutely lovely, tame little guys. They come in a variety of colors. We've got a purple one with a couple spots. This one's a little bit more of an albino blend. He's completely white, no spots.
Do they have a long lifespan, these guys?
They do, but you know what? We run an adoption program. So a lot of the geckos we adopt out are halfway through their lives. They can live up to 30 years. Common is about 20 to 30. But if you adopt one that's about 10, 15 years, you're not looking at that long-term commitment.
Now, what do we know about the gecko and its ability to detect people's voices, certain scents, certain colors?
Right now, we know for at least every single animal we have at Reptilia, whether it's a snake, a lizard, an alligator, crocodile, or a turtle, they know the zookeepers. They know every single one of us.
How do you know that?
Well, when I walk into one of our education rooms, that's where we keep most of our animals, the animals know exactly who's in there. So if I'm talking, I might have a certain gecko that's a little bit more bonded to me, pop their little head up and look over and say, hey, we're going out today. What are we doing? Are you feeding me, right?
You know, that makes for a good pet for someone who's at home and wants a companion and isn't capable of taking a dog for walks every day.
Exactly. Very, very low maintenance. They can tell you a little bit more about what their care needs.
So when it comes to taking care of leopard geckos, I mean, they are found in northern India, many parts of Pakistan, and they are desert animals. So you're going to be setting up your enclosure for a lot of burrowing. So you're going to have a lot of sand on the bottom, rocks and logs for them to climb over, of course, to make sure they're having a lot of exercise and giving them enough space to make sure that they have enough enrichment for their lives, of course.
We're going to switch over to the next animal, which is a turtle. It's going to be a red-eared slider.
And again, I should mention all of these reptiles are available for adoption. If anyone is interested in taking home a leopard gecko, a turtle, a ball python, who you'll meet soon. Now this is the turtle.
Yep, this is our red-eared slider.
This is Shelly. Unfortunately, like a lot of turtles, she ended up at Reptilia, someone who couldn't take care of her anymore. When you buy a red-eared slider as a baby, it's about the size of a toonie. They're very cute, they're very little, but they grow very fast. And this is a female. This is about their average lifespan.
Oh.
That's normal, that's okay.
It's peeing.
Yep.
It comes with the job.
So you get them at a pet shop, they're little, and then they grow very quickly. So it takes about 2 years for the animal to get this size.
Okay.
She's a little scratchy.
She's scratchy.
Oh, yeah. She can get a little excited.
She's definitely excited. Oh, my goodness. Now, is she fast?
She can be a little bit quick, absolutely. We work with a couple of rescues where we help to find these turtles homes. They are active, they're lovely. If you set up a nice enclosure in your house, they're a lot of fun to look at as well. But they can live a long time. So the rescue we work with, they're named Little Rescue, and basically they are adopting out these turtles that are 40, 50 years old. They can live to be 60 or 70.
Wow.
So they're a long-term commitment for sure, but helping one out halfway through its life is amazing.
It may outlive its owner.
A lot of the time they do.
Okay, he's so cute, just going like this, you know? Like, it's so sweet, swimming in the air.
Yeah, their diet's actually quite simple. We do sell a variety of things at Reptilia, pellets, dried flowers and leaves and fruits that they can have, as well as, crickets and mealworms. So not too hard to take care of, to be honest. Again, they eat 3 times a week.
And you think he recognizes you guys?
He probably does.
Are turtles
especially with
smart?
the color of our shirts. We find that when we walk by their exhibits at Reptilia, they poke their heads up and they're like, yes, you guys are gonna feed us.
All right, and last but not least, of course, the ball python. I can hear people kind of squirming in their seats, but I held him earlier and he's pretty cute.
He is. His name is Monty, and Monty is quite lovely. So here you go, if you want to help me out holding him. There you go.
You hold the head.
It's all good, yeah.
All right, let's talk about Monty.
So ball pythons are probably one of the most common pet snakes. Yeah. They can live to be about 20, 30 years of age, so they've got a good lifespan. Again, we do get a lot of people who maybe get them for their kids and then they get bored. The kids go to university and leave the animal behind, and the parents say, oh, I don't know what to do with it. So we'll take them in, we'll do our very best to help them find good homes, and people. These are my favorite snakes. You can sit and watch TV, and all they do is sit there with you and snuggle. We're nice and warm. They love to sit on our laps.
And they eat mice?
They eat mice and rats, and that's the best part about this. Mice and rats come fresh, frozen from the farm, but they only eat once every 2 weeks. So if you want a low-maintenance pet, here it is. It poops once a week, very, very clean. You don't have to walk it. You don't have to do too much with it, and feed it every 2 weeks.
It poops once a week?
You got it.
From where?
We can show you later.
Am I touching it?
Nope, you're good.
Okay, so final question. What would you say is the future for reptiles as service animals?
Well, when it comes to service animals, I'm not too sure about that.
I can answer that for you. So we actually do have a special needs program at Reptilia. We do classes with kids with autism or disabilities, and they're a little bit different programming from our general education programs. The kids get a chance to touch the animals, they learn about them at their own pace. And what we do find is that they actually do get calm. They change their structure, their way of learning. We have a gecko program where people can keep, teachers can keep geckos in their classroom, and it teaches the kids the same thing, that empathy, that care, that mindfulness for nature. So we're again learning more about it, but little by little we are finding that changes behavior.
That's really neat. Way. All right, well, if you are at all interested in adopting a reptile, speak with Aiden and Sam maybe after the show. That's all the time we have for this segment. When we come back, a bond like no other. Stay tuned for that.
But the bond is like no other. It's not like having a pet, right? I mean, this is my partner on the road. She's at home with me and my family every day. These dogs are with us every day, right? All day.
Welcome back. For centuries, humans have understood the value of animals, not only as companions, but also as working partners. One example of this is the K9 unit. Constable Matt Butts joined me now, together with his partner in crime, who's not quite outside of your car just yet, but you'll get her. So tell me a little bit about her. How long have you been working with her for?
I've had Siren now on the road certified for just over a year. So she's what we call a general purpose dog. So Siren can work off of fresh human scent. An example being if somebody was to break into a structure, a building, and they were to flee before the police got there, that person could go over 10 fences, cross 4 roads, go over 10 more fences and hide in a shed. If I got Siren there and got her on that fresh human scent of that person leaving the exit point of that building, she would track that person over 10 fences across the 4 streets, 10 more fences, and find the person in the shed.
It's so remarkable how smart they are. So why don't you bring Siren
Sure.
out? I understand she's a big dog.
Come here, honey. Come here. Sit. So this is Siren. She's just over 2 now. I got her at 11 months old.
Now, I'm not allowed to touch her, is that right?
You know what? She's very social. When they put that vest on, that's their uniform. Similarly to the police, when we put our uniform on, right, we're at work. So she knows when that vest goes on, it's time to work. Siren was born in the Czech Republic. She came here when she was 11 months old, and she knew nothing. She didn't have any commands. She didn't know anything, no heel, sit, anything like that we'd need. So she was given to me, and all the training is done from
By
me
you.
to her, yes.
Now, tell me a little bit about the bond you share with Siren. She lives with you.
She does,
So
yeah.
she's never apart from you.
She comes home with me every day. She's at home with me and my family every day. But the bond is like no other. It's not like having a pet, right? I mean, this is my partner on the road when we're driving around going call to call. It's only me in the police car. I don't have a human partner with me. Hey.
And you trust her to protect you.
Absolutely.
Siren isn't your first police dog.
She's not, no.
Tell me about your previous police dog.
I had a German Shepherd named Cash. He, again, was a general purpose dog. And in October of 2017, we went to a high-end carjacking where there was a firearm involved. The firearm they believed was thrown into a ravine, I deployed cash. He worked off the human scent of the gun that was used in the carjacking. It was thrown into the ravine. He went in, retrieved it because there was human scent on it. And we didn't know that he was fighting cancer. He had cancer on his liver. And the adrenaline and the blood pressure getting up from him doing that call fed the tumor, and his tumor burst inside him, and he bled to death in the truck.
And what was it like losing your partner in crime?
You know, I've lost pet dogs before, right? But as I said earlier, you know, these dogs are with us every day, right? All day. So it's the bond with a service dog that is a working partner is, you can't explain it to somebody that's never done it, you know?
All right. Well, Siren, nice to meet you. Matt, thank you for sharing your story.
Absolutely, thanks so much.
We're just gonna head into the studio. So continuing on the theme of animals with jobs and the important role that they play in our lives, we turn now to the Lions Foundation of Canada Dog Guides, who've brought 2 different dogs in with them today to talk a little bit about what benefits they provide. So, ladies, come on in. Who do we have here?
This is Tori. Tori's one of our autism assistance dog guides in training. And what we're going to demo is Christina here is going to be our parental handler. And Amanda is going to be a child with autism who is going to see something and try and bolt off to get to it. Yeah, so having that handle on the dog alone tends to keep most of our children very focused on their dog and not want them to even run away.
And they would walk around all day just hanging
onto their handle, and there's a sensory thing to it. However, if something were to happen, we have that tether there to prevent them from getting too far away so that the parent can intervene and keep them safe.
Okay. That's worth an applause. Thanks, Tori.
And they were going to also demonstrate this here is a service dog, and her name's Daisy. So Daisy's going to be paired with somebody that has a mobility challenge, so they might be in a wheelchair, a power chair, a scooter, or use a walker, something like that. And the dog's trained to help with a lot of physical tasks to make that person more independent in their community.
Such as what? Like?
So, for instance, one of the big things is fetching, and it can be fetching anything like I've dropped my keys, I've dropped the remote control, my cell phone in today's world. So one of the easy things they'll do is that.
Fetch. Fetch, Daisy. Good girl.
So, I mean, right now Daisy's in training, but depending on what that client needs, the client might not be able to reach down to even get it. So Daisy will put front paws up on her lap eventually. So one of the other big things too is that a lot of our clients can get up into some trouble where they might need support from anybody in the community to call 911 or their mobility aid gets stuck. So we teach our dogs to bark for help. So on a whisper command of help, the dog will bark for help and keep barking for help until we've told him to stop. So we're going to demonstrate that now.
Oh. Wow.
So this has been invaluable to our clients. You know, if someone's looking out even their apartment window and there's a dog in a harness barking to someone in a mobility aid, they're thinking, okay, something's happening, I should go check it out. So we've had a lot of people had 911 called or whatever.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you, Alex. Thanks for joining me. Okay, now I'm just gonna head over to the table now. Now, last but not least, Laura Tamblin-Watts from CARP, a familiar face probably to many of you in the audience, has brought with her puppy, Remy, who's a very special dog, Canada's only elder abuse dog. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Talk to us a little bit about his skill.
So there's a program out of the United States which has been very successful, helping older adults who've experienced abuse and neglect go through the criminal justice system and go through the civil justice system. So very difficult for people who've experienced trauma. And we've seen how successful this has been with children or people who have experienced domestic violence. And so Remy is the first dog being trained in Canada to help older adults who've experienced abuse and neglect.
And what would that look like? I mean, how would he help someone who's experienced?
But you can see here he's a very good and calm dog. So part of what he does is provide some of that compression support for people with anxiety.
Can I pet him?
You, of course, he's very easy. He's also hyperallergenic and doesn't shed, so that's helpful for people who may otherwise be concerned about allergies. He's also being trained, so he'll be able to go through the courthouse with people who may have some challenges with limited eyesight or limited vision. And so he's about to be starting his harness training soon. So that helps people in the courtroom, or if they're doing it in a lawyer's office, to help to navigate the room, and they'll sit with them as well. So he's not a formal seeing eye dog, but he will help to be able to navigate older adults who may have some challenges with sensory perception.
And just one last question. If successful, would it mean having to give up Remy?
No, no one's getting between me and Remy. Similar to my colleague, he's really not just our partner in this particular, but he also gets to be our pet at home as well. But he has a lot of training, and he knows when he's wearing his jacket. I smiled when the officer said that as well. He has a bright blue jacket, and when he's training here, or when he's actually doing his work, he behaves in a very certain fashion. If you take that off, then he's ready to go play.
That's neat. All right, Laura, thank you so much for coming in. There's more after the break. Stay tuned.
Thank you.
Because it's so dependent on you, it's very hard for them to accept the fact that you're not there. He didn't know you're leaving. He doesn't know when you're coming back. So they essentially go through a grieving process.
Welcome back. It's that time in the show, and we hear questions from our audience. Welcome to the round table. What's your name?
Thank you, Nora. My question's in regards to obtaining a rescue second-hand dog, a greyhound. And my main concern is in the psychology, if perhaps there's some issues that I need to be aware of, especially crates closing, gates closing, small animals, people, certain types of people from the trainers, and the abuse that they've had.
Right. I imagine you're talking about retired race
Racing
greyhounds.
dogs, yep.
There are unfortunately several issues with those dogs. They could turn out and be lovely pets, and I've known quite a few of them. But because of the training they've had, because of the years in the racetrack, because of the way they were treated, there is always the risk of them running after a child or a small animal and trying to bite it, because for them, it's a conditioned reflex at that point, where they see something running, they just go after it. They don't think much before they do that. They're very impulsive when it comes to it. So one very important advice to remember with retired greyhound is always to keep a muzzle on that dog when in public, because they may never do that. And I don't have a crystal ball to predict that, but I've seen more than enough cases where it had happened, and it's never a pretty sight when something like that happens. So if you adopt a dog like that, they can turn out to be great pets, and they deserve a second chance. There is no question about it. But you just have to be careful and keep a muzzle. As far as inside the house with an owner, with a family, they usually are very good dogs. That shouldn't be an issue. It's just when something crosses their sight and goes really fast, that's when they are triggered in a way.
Oh, very good.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Hello, welcome to the round table. What's your name?
My name is Walt.
And what's your question, Walt?
I have a little Maltese Terrier, and he's 4 years old, and he's cute as a button. And when people ask me what kind of a dog it is, I say it's a therapy dog, but I think it needs therapy. It's not a therapy dog. But the problem I have with him is when I'm away on vacation, he stops eating. So he's with a dog sitter. He stops eating, and I get concerned about his health and well-being. The minute we read together, he eats again and eats like crazy. What can I do to help him through this process?
There is a lot you can do. I think the first thing we need to do is almost to blame ourselves, not you as an owner or myself as an owner, ourselves as human beings, because we created an animal for evolution that is dependent on us for everything. The dog cannot decide to go and open the fridge to get something to eat when it's hungry. It depends on you. But because it's so dependent on you, it's very hard for them to accept the fact that you're not there. He didn't know you're leaving. He doesn't know when you're coming back. So they essentially go through a grieving process because he has no idea when you're coming back, if you're coming back. So there is panic involved in that. I don't know what's going to happen. And as much as he may love your dog sitter, it's still not home. It's still not the same routine with you. It's still not the same environment. And worst of all, he had no idea that it's coming. So when we leave our pets and they act like that, it's not surprising. It's a very, very common problem. But some of these pets will need medications to help them, either through the process, same as a person who's afraid of flying will take medication just for the flight itself. So some of them will need medication for that process. Some of them, you can get them accustomed to it slowly by doing a few hours with the dog sitter and then a day with the dog sitter and slowly build it to that point. It's very variable, but I don't know any dog that likes to be separated from their owners, whether it's an hour at the clinic or away for a few days.
But is it the same, what happens if someone goes to work every single day? Do they become familiar with that routine where the parent leaves and comes back at the end of the day? Or is this just when you go away on vacation and leave the dog?
Most dogs will habituate or get used to the routine because they know if the owner is taking this coat or these shoes, they go to work, or this coat and these shoes, they take me out for a walk. And then they also learn that you're coming back at a specific time. So they can adjust to the routine. There is a subset of dogs that will never adjust, and those are the dogs that I get to see with separation-related problems and panic disorders, and they will never habituate to that. Because mostly the dog will habituate within the first few days of their life with you. I don't think they enjoy that. And a simple test is leave the dog some treats or food when you're away, and if the dog eats it when you're there, but not eats it when you're away, and then as soon as you come home, the dog goes and eats it, it tells you it wasn't the treat the dog didn't like. It's the fact that you are not there, and then they don't want to eat.
It's real love.
Absolutely.
It may sound silly, but I WhatsApped, called the dog every day and showed the dog and talked to the dog, and it ignored my call. Can you imagine?
Yeah. Well, that actually could be quite confusing because they don't understand technology. Your voice shows up from nowhere where you are not there, so that could be quite confusing.
Okay, Walt, thank you very much for your question. When we come back, final thoughts.
In a previous episode, we discussed sports. On Facebook, Sebastian writes, I found a new love for tennis. It's important to keep moving, and because I've started playing tennis again, I feel fit again. In another episode of theZoomer, we talked about how to get your best sleep. Diana wrote an email after attending the live studio taping. She said, I love my sleep. However, I never seem to get enough of it. Thanks for all the great tips on how important sleep really is. Keep the comments coming in and connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and via email at rsvp@zoomermedia.ca. Don't forget, for free tickets to the show, go to www.universe.com and search Zoomer Media, and log on to www.thezoomertv.com for full episodes and more.
All right, Sagi, why don't we start with you?
We talked mostly for this show about the impact that these pets have on us and how they help us and how they help people with autism or people with diabetes and the comfort and support that they give us. But the two final thoughts, perhaps, if you might, is the impact that it has on the pet. Sometimes we forget that the pet also has its own wishes and desires. They're not just a tool to help us. And there is a lot of impact on them. It's a very stressful work for them. And that takes a toll on the pet. And the other thing is, especially with children that have autism, for example, or elderly people who are vulnerable, losing that pet can have a significant effect on them as well. That pet has been their lifeline. And losing that pet, it could be very traumatic. So it's also learning how to help those people. I mean, when we lose a pet as a companion, when Matt talked about it, it's hard, but for those people, it's a lifeline. So for a child with autism or elderly people that lose a pet, it's sometimes even more important to find ways to help them.
That our organizations is a charity, and we have a really big fundraiser coming up because we provide these dogs to all of our clients free of charge, no barrier to them. So I'd encourage you to go look at walkfordogguides.com. There's walks in 200 communities across the country, and if you're interested in coming out and supporting us, then it'd be a great time to come out and walk with some dogs, and bring your dog if you have one, please.
It's nice being in a position where I actually train dogs, but to be able to come here and see what these guys do with guide dogs, and to hear about the way that the Humane Society can help people out with adopting dogs and stuff like that. Having a dog as a companion, as a partner, as somebody that I'm with all the time, I encourage people to go out there, and if you can, and you know, take those dogs, especially the rescues, and give them the life that they'd love to have.
One of my biggest thoughts when it comes to animal care in general, especially with a final thought, making sure that you guys do all of your research before taking in an animal in the first place. Although it is very cool to get a turtle or a snake as a pet, making sure that you want to have that pet for, you know, its entire life, and a good majority of your life, is a big key part of taking care of it.
Love that, absolutely. I think for me this was very eye-opening. I mean, we've worked with special needs and kids with autism, and we know the impact that this has on learning and emotion and memories as well. But I think we now have, I guess now I've discovered a passion to kind of also explore how we can help out further, you know, how these animals can help us and how we can help them in reciprocal as well. So, very cool.
A lot of the time, the Toronto Humane Society is kind of in the forefront of people's minds when they think about a place to go to surrender an animal or adopt an animal. But one of the things that we are really focusing on is the human-animal bond, and how we can help people who have animals, who are having difficulty with those animals, even though they love them, to maintain that relationship and maintain that bond. And that's what a lot of our programs and services are about, because we believe it's really important.
All right, well, a big thank you to my panelists and to the audience for being here. That's all the time we have. We'll see you soon. For now, it's time to zoom out.